Imagine a routine Saturday night turning into a fight for survival. For 25-year-old Saul Lopez, a casual dinner invitation wasn't the start of a romance, but a carefully orchestrated death trap. He believed he was getting to know a woman he met online. Within hours, he would be fighting to stay alive after being thrown 50 feet from a bridge into the Escambia River. It began with a Facebook friend request from a woman calling herself Crazy. The woman behind the profile was Natalie Fanica. She initially reached out asking for a meal, and after a seemingly normal taco date, she contacted him again, asking to meet after his work shift. When Saul arrived, Natalie performed what investigators would later describe as a subtle compliance test. She insisted on driving his Honda Odyssey to pick up a cat. By handing over his keys, Saul unknowingly surrendered control of the situation. The trap snapped shut when Natalie's accomplice, Nafis Reynolds, entered the van armed with a gun. Under the pretense of heading to a family cookout, the pair drove Saul into a remote area. The illusion of hospitality quickly vanished. They made it clear this was not a robbery that would end with him walking away. They told him plainly that this was the night he was going to die. What followed was a brutal and calculated assault. Saul was beaten mercilessly. Then, in a final act meant to ensure his death, they slashed his throat from ear to ear and threw him from a bridge into the Escambia River. His attackers were certain no one could survive such injuries. They underestimated his will to live. Saul hit the water, his neck burning from the deep wounds. Somehow, he managed to stay afloat. In the darkness, he clung to a small patch of land, fighting blood loss and shock. He waited through the night until daylight finally gave him a chance to signal a passing boat. The nightmare came to light that October morning in Pensacola when a blood-soaked, barefoot man was seen staggering near a busy intersection. An Escambia County Sheriff's deputy, just beginning his shift, found Saul barely conscious. His face was swollen and unrecognizable from blunt force trauma. Deep wounds across his neck made speaking nearly impossible. Despite the severe language barrier and his body shutting down from blood loss, Saul communicated the basics. He had been carjacked, beaten, and left for dead. As surgeons fought to save him, investigators discovered his burned Honda Odyssey miles away, reduced to a charred shell of twisted metal and melted glass. The fire had consumed nearly everything inside, destroying fingerprints, personal belongings, and any immediate trace of what had happened. What remained was a blackened frame sitting in silence, a deliberate effort to wipe the slate clean. This wasn't just robbery. It was an attempt to erase the crime and the victim. Whoever did this hadn't simply wanted money or a vehicle. They wanted distance from evidence. They wanted time. They wanted investigators chasing ashes instead of answers. Burning the van was meant to sever the connection between the assault and those responsible, to make it appear as though Saul had vanished without a trace. This wasn't just robbery. It was an attempt to erase the crime and the victim. Whoever did this hadn't simply wanted money or a vehicle. They wanted distance from evidence. They wanted time. They wanted investigators chasing ashes instead of answers. Burning the van was meant to sever the connection between the assault and those responsible, to make it appear as though Saul had vanished without a trace. Detective Martinez, a Spanish-speaking investigator, later interviewed Saul in the hospital. Piece by piece, Saul helped reconstruct the timeline. Using Google Earth, he identified the house where he had first been lured. Records tied the address to Natalie Fanica and Nafis Reynolds, who had a documented history of domestic violence. The investigation took a dramatic turn when the pair walked into a convenience store while detectives were reviewing surveillance footage. They were followed and eventually apprehended. During questioning, Natalie accidentally implicated herself in another robbery committed just 9 days later. Investigators uncovered a disturbing pattern. The pair had developed a honey trap method, targeting Spanish-speaking men, luring them under false pretenses, and robbing them at gunpoint. Although Natalie attempted to portray herself as manipulated and abused by Nafis, evidence showed she actively lured victims and stood by during the violence. Once Saul positively identified both attackers from his hospital bed, the case moved swiftly. Facing the possibility of life sentences, both defendants accepted plea deals for attempted murder, kidnapping, and carjacking. In court, Natalie delivered a lengthy statement blaming her upbringing and her relationship for her actions. The prosecution and judge noted her lack of intervention or genuine remorse. Ultimately, both Natalie Fanica and Nafis Reynolds were sentenced to 30 years in prison. The courtroom chapter closed, but Saul's story did not end there. The records reflect a miraculous survival and a successful prosecution. What they cannot fully capture is the internal toll of betrayal and brutality. Saul Lopez survived the river that night. He ensured his attackers faced justice. But survival is not the same as forgetting. The shadow of that Saturday night will always remain, not just in the scars that trace his neck, but in the memories that surface when the world grows quiet. What was meant to be a simple dinner became a brutal lesson in betrayal. Yet through unimaginable pain, Saul chose to fight. He fought the current. He fought the darkness. He fought for another breath when his attackers believed he had none left. And in doing so, he rewrote the ending they had planned for him. His story is not only one of violence, but of resilience. Not only of cruelty, but of courage. While the prison doors have closed on those responsible, Saul's journey forward continues, shaped by survival, strengthened by justice, and defined by a will to live that refused to sink beneath the surface.